not your average visual novel. Digital Love Story succeeds in adding some much-needed creativity in a stagnant genre, though it finds itself falling into the same pitfalls its brethren reside in fairly often. While the game clearly feeds on the nostalgia of the player, with its stark blue colour palette which makes up the game's unchanging UI, and excessive use of modem sounds, the game doesn't hesitate to take you back into the 80s, whether you're around during that time or not. This is the game's main gimmick, yet this purposeful dating makes up Digital's most lucrative selling point: nostalgia. In fact, stationary is an apt word to describe Digital A Love Story. Its title proposes a tale of love, and it technically delivers this, yet the game's gimmick actively works against this idea. This struggle caused by the disparity between the idea of love and the idea of the digital realm, made literal by the way we connect to this digital world, through a monitor disallowing any real interactivity with the world created by Christine Love, is actually a big thematic focus of this game. The story is focused on the impossibilities of love with a machine, yet shows the player just how this love is, in fact, completely possible if the love is true. This changes a flaw in the premise into a more interesting analysis into the fine points of love and the internet. But this story premise would never work if it weren't for the great writing delivered to us by Christine Love. The game puts you into its world by making its world a recreation of the player's nostalgia, instantly immersing you into what the game offers right from the get-go, and skillfully uses its grip on the player to immerse them entirely into the quaint love story budding from the annals of various BBS message boards. The beginning half hour or so of the game sets you up in a way that most players will be unable to avoid growing to love their love interest in the game, Emilia. On top of this, flavor text is sprinkled generously throughout the game, always being entertaining, interesting, or at the very least immersive. However, no matter how poignant and well told the story is, the game fails to offer a legitimate window into its world. Essentially, the game trades its legitimately brilliant immersion for a lack of gameplay and obsession with realism, despite this clashing with its fairly outlandish story. Digital wants you to go back to the 80s, desperately, as its entire premise relies on the player truly being taken to its world. To do so, the game forces you into tedium after tedium. Much like computers in the 80s, nothing can be done efficiently or with grace, and this leads the player to grow tired with the game's insistence with being historically accurate. Modem sounds play in their entirety for each time you access a BBS, essentially the game's version of chat rooms, and keeping a list of passwords and numbers for each BBS is a pain. While the game does rectify this somewhat with the addition of an automatically updating notepad app on its desktop which contains all of your passwords and numbers, even using this convenience becomes inconvenient when you have to open it separately every time you want to dial a number, and always before you open the dialer. There are many other situations like this present in the game, and they all form into a package which makes the game much less pleasant to play on the whole. Remember when I said that the game falls at the same pitfalls as most other visual novels? Well, this is evidenced by the inclusion of near point-and-click adventure game levels of annoyance provided by the core gameplay system present in Digital A Love Story: messaging. The only way to advance the story in this game is to message and read the message of your peers on the internet. This is all well and good for a free visual novel, but the real failings come up when you inevitably get stuck. Go ahead and Google this game, and I can assure you that one of the first results will be some guy in a forum asking excessively about where to go and what to do next. This isn't their fault, but instead the obtuse way the game handles progression. Essentially, to proceed in the game, you have to message every person on every board and check your mail regularly when you are stuck. And since this happens a lot in the game, you'll be messaging a lot of people to no avail. This is made all the worse by the long delay between dialing BBS and waiting for the 10-second modem sound to play. On top of this, Digital isn't particularly innovative to the genre either. I doubt anyone would expect this free game to be a paragon for its genre, but there's no doubt that it could have offered a more creative answer to exploring its story. The idea of BBSs and the internet being used to tell a love story is great, but the game quickly divulges into a repetitive formula of reading and dialing, which wouldn't hold up if the game were any longer than its 2-hour runtime. Alas, any mention of Digital A Love Story would be remiss without mention of its eclectic chiptune soundtrack. Near every song fits the situations it's played in, and seem natural in the world presented by the game. In fact, the songs played are shown to be played by a media player app on the desktop, adding further immersion to the game, though I cannot deny the repetition caused by the main theme of the game, which plays far too frequently and quickly becomes grating. In fact, repetitive would probably be my biggest complaint with Digital Love Story. The player simply does not have enough actions to perform within the game, causing it to feel too dry and samey. However, no matter these flaws, Digital Love Story holds up to its name by offering a well thought out narrative between the thematic disparity of love and a bunch of zeros and ones.